Hello and welcome back to Grimdork Minis. Today we're going to be trying out a new series where we roll some dice to determine what we're painting and how we're painting it. Welcome to Roll for Paint. So a really simple concept here. I have 5 tables to determine what it is we're painting. The first is miniature, then style, main technique, 3 colors, and then our wild roll. Let's get into it and I'll explain everything else as it comes up. And for our first roll, we're going to roll a d12 to determine the mini we're painting today. For that, we get a 6. That's going to mean a Hearthkyn warrior from the Leagues of Votann. This little space dwarf has lots of flat surfaces that should work great for a variety of styles. So we've got our style roll for a d6. With that, we're going to roll a 5, OSL-focused. We're going to make this guy glow somewhere and hopefully in a way that makes sense. For this, we're going to be looking for darker colors for the armor to really make the OSL stand out. For our technique, also going to be a d6, we get a 1, layering. So we're going traditional, thin coats, smooth blends, and a whole lot of brush control. This is the old school way to make the colors sing. Now to figure out our colors. We're rolling 3d20s, and each of these colors has to factor in a major way. We've got a 2. That's going to be pink. We're going to be working through a standard pink color triad here from Screamer up to Fulgrim Pink. Next is a 14, and that's going to be teal. Really interesting combo here, definitely a cotton candy theme going on. For this, we're going to go from dark emerald and gradually mix in Dorn Yellow to get our highlights. And finally a 19. Pick a fluorescent color. This is going to be a bright one. Like I said, it's going to glow somehow, and this is how. I'm thinking of fluorescent green for our lighting effect, and to get there, I'm also going to add in a bit of yellow for some pop. Wow, that color roll was a bit of a doozy. So we've got a Nuclear Cotton KynDy theme going at the moment, so let's see what we get for a wild roll. A 19. Roll a second style and use it. Okay, so this could change the complexion of things in a big way. Say we get a 5, and then we're doubling down on the OSL or anything else, and we'll see what happens. So for this, we're going back to our style sheet, and we get a 3 for retro. Remember when I said dark muted colors to make the OSL pop? Yeah, it's not really going to work anymore. We're going to have to turn the saturation and brightness up to 11 for this now bright and poppy and glowing paint job. So the beginning of any retro paint job in my book begins with a base. It's going to be iconic for the era of Warhammer that this is representing. So that's going to be a little bit of light texture, followed by the definitive bright goblin green with bright flock. So before we go ahead and prime our guy, let's throw some coarse rock on there with Mod Podge. Let's get ready to prime. And for priming, we want bright poppy colors in here, so due to the OSL mostly, but mainly now due to the retro roll. So I'm thinking a bright zenithal is going to suit us really nicely. So to zenithal, we're first priming our model in a darker color, then coming over the top at an angle with a brighter one. My preferred method, and what we're going to be using for this, is a black prime and then gradually spraying a white ink over the top. It's going to be transparent enough that it's going to add very gradually to our brightness and gives a lot of control to determine what we want bright and how bright we get. With our priming done, we have our dwarf ready to rock. So let's get to painting. For this paint job, I'm going to knock out the base coating first, just to get a sense for our main colors and how they kind of play and interact together. While we base coat, I feel that now would be a great time to ask, if you like this concept, please consider leaving a like, comment, or subscribing. It's just going to let me know that you actually want to see more of it. So yeah, before anyone points out, the show is very obviously inspired by Roll for Sandwich. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. It's a great one. And so now, let's get into the rules. So for this series, I really want the paint jobs to be pretty fast. So I'm looking to finish these in about 2 hours. Honestly, I'm really hoping that this will allow me to get one video out a week of kind of alternating this show and then my more traditional content that I've been putting out of more detailed and in-depth tutorials. So if I go longer than 2 hours, it's not a big deal. This series is more just about putting interesting painting concepts and colors onto minis. So for colors, I obviously have my 3 that I rolled as the feature colors. These have to factor into the paint job in a major way. So for this, the teal, the pink, and the neon. Besides that, unless otherwise specified by the dice, which it could decide for me, I'm giving myself access to neutral colors and metallics. These aren't meant to act as primary colors, but for instance, this guy will get brown belts, bags, and boots. There are ways the dice could take this away, so I'm sure that will probably happen in future episodes. Besides that, I just want to keep as close to the rolls as possible and really let the randomness speak for itself, trying to create the best painted thing I can with what I'm given. So that's enough base coding and rules nonsense, so let's get into the more interesting stuff in the highlights. So for highlighting, layering is the technique that I use the most often. It is where most people are going to start if they follow the standard GW paint philosophy of base, wash, highlight. It's a really, really simple technique that once you become proficient, your paint jobs will drastically increase in quality. The basic idea is that you thin your paint, then apply it over the top of your base coat. It highlights the area and gradually increases the color depth and overall brightness. In my opinion, this is the most useful technique. If you're just starting out as a beginner, this is where I would start. Speed paints are great, but at the end of the day, they don't teach you a whole lot about creating better contrast, better depth. They just kind of do it all for you. So this is definitely where I recommend starting. For us, I'm going to mix about 2 parts dark emerald to 1 part Dorn yellow for this first highlight. I just really don't want it to get too bright too quick. With this color, I'm going to then cover the majority of our teal, apart from the deepest recesses, remembering to pull my brush strokes towards the brightest areas in the model. So when you're doing this, make sure to remember that when you first place your stroke, you're going to leave the least paint behind, and where you pick up your brush is where the most paint is going to be deposited, so just make sure to keep that in mind. With this being in the retro style, I want to keep away from washes. When you think classic Warhammer paint jobs that you might have seen in White Dwarf, you think of bright, oversaturated colors that accomplish their depth by using what we probably nowadays would call a mid-tone as their base color. That leads to really punchy paint jobs that lack a little bit of depth, but end up cartoony and super bright saturated in nature. Very stylized and very definitive of the time period. We need to add in brighter colors. For our pants and pink details, that's going to be Emperor's Children. And for our teal details, this will be by moving our ratio up to about 1:1 of Dorn and Dark Emerald. I'm trying to focus my highlights where the light catches the most. It's called the volumetric highlight. Basically, wherever your light source is coming into contact should be brighter than areas where it's not. So naturally, areas like this guy's armpit are going to be darker than, say, the front of his chest plate. As we work through these steps, I'm still keeping in mind the direction of my brush strokes and consistency of my paint. On the point of consistency, if you're not using a wet palette and want to up your painting game, I highly recommend using one. So with these, you can make it out of Tupperware, paper towels, and parchment paper if you really need to. It is a tool that makes thinning your paints, which is an integral portion of any painting, kind of trivial. Most of the time, I just kind of put a blob of paint down on my palette, then pull from that, letting a bit of water from the palette thin my paint for me. It is the single biggest tool that will help you on your mini painting journey. Now that we have worked our way up to this painful level of brightness between both the teal and the pink, I mean, good lord, it is oppressive. It's full cotton candy mode in here, so now it's time to introduce our OSL. There are a few areas that I think would be really nice for it. So what I'm thinking is under the lip of the shoulder pad, his face mask, and that little light on his chest. So to lay that out, we need some white. The easiest way to get this panel liner white effect, I need oil paints. So for this, I'm going to take some white oils, mix in white spirits to make a pretty thin wash consistency, about the consistency of skim milk if I had to think. Then I can take a little bit on my brush and just touch the edge into the areas that I want the white to go. It's going to flow into the cracks and crevices, gradually filling them up and creating this interior lighting effect. Shows this really easily on the face mask of I'm just kind of touching the edge of that divot and recess, and the oil paint is taking it the rest of the way. Once that is done, I can bust the airbrush back out and get to lighting. I think that the airbrush is really essential for this OSL effect. Is it the end-all be-all? No. It just takes a lot more practice with the brush, and honestly, I'm not super proficient in that method. I'd normally just go to the airbrush for it. So for this, I'm going to spray my green over the areas, focusing in the white bits to get that big pop of color, but also making sure to spray in the areas where the light's going to shine onto. The white step and this one will create an effect where it's brighter over white, and then tints the other materials as though the green is shining on it. One of the big things with the airbrush is that it allows you to really gradually increase the amount of paint that you're putting on it, while still making sure that it's smooth and it flows evenly. Once the green's on there, I'm just going to repeat the step with the yellow, same as dripping in the white oils and then spraying it with the yellow. Don't need to show this because it's basically the exact same thing I just did. Just keep that in mind. With that done, our beautiful radioactive candy boy is almost complete. We just need to really add more vibrance in the form of our goblin green base. So I already have the airbrush out here, so I'm just going to spray the closest thing I've got to goblin green, because they don't make it anymore, which is going to be War Boss green over the entire base. That's going to get the lip of the base as well as the ground covering. For this, I'm going to have a little bit of overspray on the boots. I'm just going to correct that with my brown once I have this all complete. Another big thing with the bases from this time period was that they had that yellow vibe to them. So with this, I'm going to introduce a bit of Bad Moon Yellow, just with a big thick brush to keep that retro vibe going. And as a finisher, I'm going to grab the brightest, most vibrant flock that I've got and just start applying it. I can use the kind of wet paint that's already here just as a way to bond it. And from there, with our board complete, let's see how we did. Wow. He is something. But, if I'm being honest, I kind of dig it. The retro style on new models is an interesting twist, and even though it looks like a 5-year-old picked my colors, it's kind of speaking to me. I think that's why this concept of the series is so interesting. I personally never would have tried a retro teal, pink, glowing, goblin green space dwarf, but now that I have, I'm honestly glad that I did. I'm going to go ahead and call this paint scheme, unsurprisingly, the Nuclear Cotton KynDy, and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Let's check out some of our reveal shots. Alrighty, if you liked what you saw, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and dropping a comment. I am particularly interested in funny ideas to throw on a roll of 1. I'm thinking of building up a table of viewer-decided challenges or kind of punishments that I can do while creating these models. It can be anything from range of painting the entire thing blindfolded or painting with my non-dominant hand. Just let me know. Alright guys, I will catch you in the next one. Hope you enjoyed, and have a good day.